Dad Rocks, a podcast for dads who love music, made by dads who love music. And now your hosts, Josh and Joe.
Hello and welcome to Dad Rocks, the podcast about being a dad and loving music and how the two intersect in our lives. I'm Josh and I'm here with my co-host Joe.
Hello, Josh.
And our producer Steve.
Hey guys.
Today on the show, we're going to talk about Record Store Day, which is coming up on April 23rd. And because he's one of the biggest vinyl collectors we know, we've decided to invite Adam Shanker back to the podcast. Welcome back, Adam.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
And you are, I have to correct Josh, you are the biggest vinyl collector that I know, for sure.
Definitely that I know.
Number one with the bullet.
It just worked out that way. I don't know how.
I'm assuming that some of our, or a good chunk of our listeners know what Record Store Day is, but for those that don't, can you explain what it is?
Sure. Well, Record Store Day is something that was done by the music industry to help independent record stores make money and survive. Records are a lot like books where, there's like big box stores that have put the little guys out of business. What Record Store Day basically tried to do was make it so that independent record stores could do well and make a living and bring people in for special reasons. So what they do is they produce incredible limited edition vinyl or sometimes cassette or CD or any format releases reel to reel. And they're very limited. So it brings people into the stores. And when they're in the stores, they also buy other things that are in the store besides for what is available at Record Store Day. And it kind of gets a lot of people in the rhythm of going to these record stores, which is nice, as opposed to, just buying something on Amazon, which is really convenient. But it's nice to have a local record store around. It's nice to have a local bookstore around. But, the book industry didn't really figure it out, and the record industry did.
I know I've heard about Record Store Day going back to, I think, like 2010, 2009. I don't know if that's when it started. But when did you first start going to them? Did you start going like the first year, and how did you find out about it?
Yeah, I can't even tell you, to be honest. My antennas are always up about anything with records. So, I've been going for years, well before, 2010. Whenever it started, I was probably right around then, but I can't tell you exactly when. I've missed some Record Store Days because of, you can't always go. I might miss this Record Store Day, actually, because I might have to work. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. But it hurts when that happens because the list comes out and you get all excited and I don't really pay too much attention to everything that's on the list when the list comes out. There's usually, I usually say, I find 5 or 7 things that I really like. And that's cool. So I'm going anyway. And then as it gets closer, I'm one of those people where I like to go in the store and I like to see the record. And I don't need to like do all the research beforehand and know exactly what saxophone player played differently on this one than any other recording. But as it gets closer, then, all of a sudden I have friends and everybody's talking about it. And I find out, oh, yeah, there is that saxophone player that plays on this one. That would be really great. And then that's on my list or, for any other reason. So then my list always grows and, it's just a ridiculous amount that I spend on Record Store Day. And it's actually an investment. It's not, I don't spend the money. It's like putting your money in the bank because a lot of the Record Store Day releases, because they are so limited, they really gain value. So some of them don't, but a lot of them do. So that's been a good investment, better than stocks. You can't listen to your stocks.
Yeah, you can't. Right. And I know that there's some dudes that will go to the store with the intention of, kind of maybe not in the local Jersey area, but you hop on eBay that morning and you already see things for sale that not even the UK but US because people already are priming to
flippers and vultures.
Yeah, there are vultures everywhere. I mean, vultures exist in this world. This is America, and it's cool. I have no problem with people who do that. I don't do that. I don't go to Record Store Day to buy something strictly to sell it. But there are people who do it. Usually they're ahead of me in line. I mean, there are people who get in line. I get in line very early. I mean, I get there at midnight or 1 in the morning. And there are people who were there from 8 o'clock the night before. So, if they really want to be there that long and they have money. It's all good. But what you learn when you're in line at Record Store Day, it's really a kind of a party also when you get there at that hour of the morning, and you wind up meeting a lot of really great people and talking about records and everything. And what you realize is that you think that, your Record Store Day, your record store is only going to get like maybe 2 copies allocated of something that's very highly allocated. Like this year, that's the Albert Ayler set. There's only 600 copies of it. So my record store might get like 2 copies of that. So, you get to Record Store Day, I might get there at like midnight, and there's 5 people in front of me, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm never, ever, ever going to get the Albert Ayler. And then you start like just talking to people, and you're like, by the way, what are you hot for? And they start telling you about the monster movie soundtrack that they can't wait to get, or the Batman thing, or,
Get some intel.
just different things that like I would never be interested in. And you realize that how big Record Store Day really is, because the things that I'm into have nothing to do with what somebody else might be into. And, my like 2 or 3 allocated things that I wanted that I thought I was never going to get are still sitting there, when I walk in the door. So it's pretty cool that way. There's something really for everybody.
Talking about getting there early, like I did it twice. I went to Scotty's Records in Summit like 7, 8 years ago. 2 years in a row, my friend and I got there like at 5, and we were like, yes, we're the 30th in line. And then, by an hour before the store opens, it's down, the line is down the street. And around the corner. And, there's definitely those moments. I remember my friend Henry, who's gone with me a couple times. There was one year he wanted this Ghostbusters glow-in-the-dark vinyl that, they had 2 of there, and he did not get it. And then another year he went and bought this Shoo Shoo single, and then some dude who was like 10 people behind us was like, are you buying this? You buying this? You buying this? So like he wanted to know. And my friend got like the last copy of it, and he almost sold it to the guy for a markup, but he decided to keep it and was happy about that. But I mean, Steve and Joe, have you guys ever been to Record Store Day before?
I've been once. I've been to a couple ones where it was not the early, like, Adam will always go. I'll just go like the day of and support. But 2 years ago, in 2020, during the pandemic, I'd done a trip to Colorado, and there was a place called Wax Trax Records, and they did a thing where it was, metered, and you would just do a slot. So we got there. I don't know if we were early in line for sure. And we got to go to the used record side and the new record side. And it was great. Like in a way, I almost wish they would do it that way. Like they would kind of meter people in and let people not super excitedly just gobble up everything. But I guess in a way that could let somebody also just gobble up everything. But I really had a good time. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 0 experience with Record Store Day. As much as I am a music head, rock and roll, lifer, as you guys know, I have not gone to Record Store Day. I've always meant to. It's one of those things I always mean to. And I've lived through Adam's Facebook feed for the last decade. That's my experience at Record Store Day is seeing Adam's post saying, I'm here at midnight, and I'm calculating, wait, how many hours did he wait in the pitch dark to get that record? I admire the dedication, and I always want to go, and I always say this is the year, and then something comes up, usually with children involved in a soccer tournament or something, or a lack of money, or both. I have not gone to Record Store Day yet, and it's also I got to say, a little overwhelming when I look at the list. I was looking at it earlier just to preview. It's like I was going to print it out. It's like 12 pages of records. So it is a lot to go through.
And I feel like in years past, it's been like overhyped records, and it's gotten better in that it's actual releases and not just studio leftovers or like, I feel like they've gotten better in balancing that out. Cause that was the thing too, is I'd go and I'd be like, I want like 2 or 3 of these releases, and the rest I just want to look for, new stuff or things that I want,
Yeah.
Well, Joe, if you are around that morning, there's the place in Westwood. You can go meet me there. They usually have it's a small line, and they have a good haul. Or if you're at work, like I got to tell you, there was one time I was in Pennsylvania with my wife's family, and I literally found a place that was like 20 minutes away. I went like a half hour before it opened, thinking, I'd be like a really deep line. I was like the 3rd person in line, and they had great records at this like place in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. Huh. So if you're at work, man, check out the local places and definitely
Away
go
from New
check it
Jersey
out.
and New York is better for sure.
Yeah, we can all drive to Pennsylvania.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Actually, this year, because it's on the 23rd, right? April 20,
Yeah.
23rd. So I will be in the UK on a European vacation.
Oh, that's right.
So I can be going to some, special British record stores.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Go
That
to the
more-
third
and-
man. Go
It
to
is
the third
worldwide.
man.
Speaking of places to go, in your time going, Adam, what are your favorite places to go for Record Store Day?
Well, I've basically only been to two places. I was in line with you at Scotty's, but we didn't know each other then. And I was probably there earlier. They're a great independent record store. They're my local record store. So, I go there. I love to support them. But basically, when things are highly allocated and I want things and I'm waiting all night, I want to make sure I get them. So I've been going the last couple of years to New York to Rough Trade. Which is probably the larger size independent record store, but that's okay if I get what I need. If I'm putting the time in, then I want to walk away with stuff, and they get everything. They get good allocations of things. So if I get there, usually I'm probably like third or fourth in line, and it's great, and I get everything I want, and I wind up spending too much money on top of it. Yeah.
How about the new the new location of the Rough Trade next to 30 Rock? Is it the same? Not the same size. I know it's a lot smaller. So, do they still get enough Record Store Day releases compared to the Williamsburg location?
Yeah, they get the same amount. They get the same kind of allocation, and they get a good crowd there. So it's good. I mean, it's the largest one in New York. Basically, that's the place you go to if you have something that is very highly allocated. If there's only 500 or 600 copies being pressed, and your local record store might not get any. So you go to a place like that. You can call your record store also in advance, because basically each record store actually orders what they want from the list. So some record stores will look at the list and be like, oh, Bad Company. I'm not going to sell any Bad Company. I don't want that. But the Grateful Dead, I could sell a lot of those. So I'm going to order. And then they still might not get what they ask for, but at least that's what they're going for. And they definitely won't get anything that they didn't ask for.
I remember hearing, I think Gary's the owner, right, at Scotty's?
Yeah.
So I remember hearing him talk about how, we put in like an order for 20 of this and we only got 3. And, so it really is, mixed bag of what's there. And then, like you said, you got to hope that people in front of you don't want it. But then there's also sometimes you roll in. I've rolled into places at noon when the crowds have dissipated and they have extras of the thing that I want. Or if you call at a certain time and you can't make it, you just say, can I reserve this? And at some point they'll say, yeah, you can reserve this and, pick it up later.
Yeah, afternoon, then you can start. There are places around the country that have good websites that you can basically hit their website. Some of their websites crash because everybody knows that that's the place, that has a good website to easily check out. And, because people want multiple copies. One thing about Record Store Day is if I wait in line all night long, I can only get one copy of each thing. I can't go in there and buy 4 copies of any particular record. So I can't go, and load up on something. And that's a good thing, But then that day, afternoon, then they open it up, and basically, the record store still might not let you walk out the same day with more than one, but you can go online to other record stores, or there are people who record store hop, and they start at one and they go to another. Some record stores open up at different times. There's a place in California that opens up at 5 a.m. And so people in California hit that place first, and then they go to another place and get in line and can get in there by 9 o'clock in the morning. For people who want multiple copies, I don't need multiple copies. So,
I've definitely, gone shopping for friends before, and that's so it's and it's also sometimes helpful to, go with someone else if you need a copy for a friend who can't be there. But speaking of, those records, what have been some of your most memorable or your favorites from either Record Store Day or the counterpart on Black Friday?
Yeah, I consider them all the same thing. Basically, there's always something. I mean, it's hard for me to pick out individual things. I can think of like the Sun Ra box set, which came out 3 or 4 years ago. It was everything he did in Egypt in 1971, and it was limited. It was limited to 600 copies, and that was one of the record store days I couldn't get to, and so I showed up at my local record store at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I knew he had 3 copies. And I also know that Sun Ra isn't exactly the most popular selling thing. So, I was surprised he even had 3 copies. So I said, oh, maybe I'll be able to get it. I show up at 1 o'clock and he said, the last one just sold like 15 minutes before you got here. So those were selling for $85. I wound up having to go on like eBay or Discogs or something, and I bought it for like $280, because I had to have it. Because basically, like, once those things wind up in the hands of Sun Ra collectors, they're not leaving those collections for a generation. Then I'll just never have it, Yeah. So that's like my problem. But like, there's always special things. Like they've been doing these releases, like the Doors have been starting to do these releases where they do each album. This year they're doing one of their albums where they do all the alternative takes, which is really interesting to hear stuff like that, where you can hear like the band's creative process, or a lot of live albums that are coming out this year. They're doing one, like they're doing a bunch of them, but one that I'm watching is the Bad Company one from '79. There are only 3,000 copies of that being pressed. I mean, Bad Company was a great band, and they never released a live album. And the funny thing about live albums that people don't realize is that, like in the '60s, bands didn't release live albums. If you start thinking about the amount of live albums that were released in the '60s, you can count them on a couple fingers. And so now a lot of those things are kind of coming out. They had recordings. Some of them did like radio shows that people had the tapes for.
Right, and like that Little Feat one that came out on on Black Friday this year, which is a great show.
The Little Feat one was better than Waiting for Columbus. It was great. The same thing with the Allman Brothers a couple years earlier at the Atlanta Pop Festival. That was better than Live at the Fillmore East. And people consider Live at the Fillmore East one of the best live albums ever, or Waiting for Columbus for that matter. People consider, and both of those Record Store Day releases like just killed those other ones. So those are really good. And, the Grateful Dead always puts out a box set. There's been a lot of jazz things that come out, which are always really great to get. There's a Miles Davis one coming out in the June Record Store Day. But, this time there's Pepper Adams has been releasing stuff. Different estates have kind of like latched onto the Record Store Day thing. So it goes in phases. So Bill Evans has been like, his estate has been going through all kinds of live releases, and it's just great. I mean, there's usually like 2 each time, and they're a little expensive. They're like $60, $70 at the Record Store Day, but pretty much instantly. I mean, jazz collectors are pretty affluent, and there's very few pressed. So there might be like 3,000 copies pressed of these jazz releases, and when you think of 3,000 copies in the world of a Bill Evans or Miles Davis record, they double in value pretty quickly. That's why the vultures come early.
Yeah. Now, did you say there was going to be because I know during the pandemic they did the Record Store Day drops where it was 2 days to limit the amount of records so people could choose and pick. Did you say there was going to be another one in June? Because I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, there's another one in June.
Okay. Well, we got to keep
June
our
8th, I believe.
I don't think they released the list for that yet, right?
Yes, they did. I have it right
they
here.
Did. Okay.
June 18th.
It's June 18th.
Yeah. It's on that PDF. If you go down and it cycles over to the next.
Yeah, that's when they have the Miles Davis live in Montreal from 1983, which is, having a live album of Miles Davis come out now is like finding a Mona Lisa. It's just like, or a new Picasso, it's just like unearthing things that have just been in somebody's attic. There was a Grateful Dead release a few years ago that the Grateful Dead never had a copy of it. They performed on the back of a truck in like 1968. And Mountain Girl, Jerry Garcia's wife or girlfriend, was going through one of the closets and found a cassette tape of that. And she sent it to the archives, and everybody was like blown away. And they made a Record Store Day release of that. So, it's pretty cool how some of these things come out. Rory Gallagher, his estate has been putting out releases. He has another one coming out now. They've done it for the last 3 years now. And, you know, Rory Gallagher is an unbelievable guitarist, probably one of the most underrated of the top British guitarists. He's not British, he's Irish, or from one of those Welsh Irish. But I mean, he was invited to join the Rolling Stones. You know, he turned the Rolling Stones down. He's just that kind of quality guitarist. Aerosmith has something pretty amazing coming out this year, and they did last year also. So, you know, there's always great stuff. It's very exciting. I just have piles. I mean, every record store day, I can get like 20 or 30 releases, you know, and that happens two times a year. One other nice thing about Record Store Day in April and June is when you're waiting outside in line, you know, it's the worst that's going to happen is you get a little rain. Black Friday could be a little rough sometimes.
Yes, yes, it can. But usually, the Black Friday line, I will say, if you get there at like 6, 7 o'clock, at least at Scotty's, you're okay. Would you be like the 4th or 5th? Whereas if you get there at 6 or 7 on Record Store Day, you're going to be about the 50th person in line. You know, it definitely is much better to be sitting out when there's no sun in the warmer months than when it's like below freezing and you're standing out there for even 2 hours.
Yeah, there have been a few times on Black Friday where I felt like, you know, I'm going to really deserve these when I get them. You know, these are well earned.
You know, Steve, you know, we were talking about some of, you know, the records that we've gotten. You know, do you have anything that you bought at, you know, the few that you've gone that you just are like, I can't believe I have this?
Well, that's the thing too. A point I was going to say is that the nice thing about Record Store Day is they always know that they're going to bring in people that are going to buy extra stuff outside of the Record Store Day releases. And so one of the trips, this Denver trip, actually, it was just an insane haul that day. Probably the most records that I ever bought, which I think I ended up getting like 30, which is a lot. But one of the things I found was A Tribe Called Quest, The Low End Theory, which I had never seen in the wild.
Nice.
One of my all-time favorites. And then Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream, which when I bought it, I looked at it and I was like, this is ridiculous. They were asking $40. But now that album goes for like $90 or $75 on the regular. And then I also saw Slater Kinney The Woods, which is not too hard to find, but is like an all-time favorite. And a bunch of others too. But I just felt like that day, you know, there's a couple of the Record Store Day exclusives that I looked at and I just wasn't feeling it that year. And so it was just like looking for stuff that, and I think they pulled stuff from the back too, because I know that when I talked to the guy at Vintage Vinyl, he was like, that was a nice thing, especially during the pandemic. He was like, we went in the back because they were, I guess maybe they knew that they were about to close too. But they were pulling stuff that they wouldn't normally list or normally sell unless it was like, because maybe it was just a thing that they were holding for a customer or who knows. So that's one of the nice things of that trip was I just basically used it as an excuse to just buy records and support the record store, you know? So that's another nice thing.
It is nice that when they're like, especially, you know, I've only been to a few places, and at Scotty's, they let you in through the back where all of the record
they have
store
it
day
isolated,
stuff is.
right?
Yeah, and then you go, once you're done, you leave, you can't come back, but you can peruse the rest of the store, and you know, you just buy the rest.
Which I love that. Yeah, I think it's cool.
I've definitely picked up some stuff there. But I mean, for me, one of my, you know, I've gotten a few gems, especially recently, where it's just like I wanted one. Like they re-released Robert Palmer's first album, Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, which is, I had been dying to have that. You couldn't find that on vinyl. That had been released, I think, once or twice, like in the 70s, and then hadn't been on vinyl since, and they released that, so that was a good grab. And then, I mean, I had never, you know, really had a Velvet Underground album, and then one year they re-released Loaded with like this really cool purple black spiral, you know, spin art disc, and I grabbed one, and it looks and sounds amazing, and I'm just so happy to have it, because it's also probably one of the most besides my Wolfpack records, probably the one that sells for the highest on Discogs. So you know, it's the one that's worth the most.
Well, that's what happens, and that was a repressing, you know, which is great, because like you were talking about, Steve was talking about Siamese Dream. I mean, you know, they want to repress albums like that. So, you know, they did it in a limited quantity in a really cool way. And if you were to try to find an original copy, you know, from the 90s of Siamese Dream, it would be $300 and something. So, and a lot of them are beat up, and so it's nice to have a new pressing come out, even if it might be, I don't know, 3,000 or 5,000 copies of it. At that point, you still feel lucky to get it.
Yep. 100%. That was what it was too. Is like at the time I looked at my buddy and he grabbed one too. I think it was the only 2 that were left. But we look back and we're like, we totally got lucky, because I'm sure other stores that would have sold out, and we got lucky that we were in kind of early too. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like a situation where if you snooze, you lose. So if you sleep
Jump
late,
on it if you can.
And most things are still available during the day. I mean, most people don't have to, get up at midnight and wait in line, or get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Most of the things you're gonna walk into a record store or a record store day and find things to buy. Plenty of things to buy.
Yep.
Well, and it's also important to also look at whether it's a exclusive or a first release, because there's been times when I've been like, oh yeah, I want this, and they look as though it's like a first release, and I'm like, I mean, maybe it's a special edition version of it, but also like, I know that they, do markups on record store day, so maybe I'll wait until it gets, the other batch gets released, and but it's also sometimes you're there and you're like, I just want this, so I'm gonna grab it. But it is definitely cool because, Steve, you were mentioning, how there have been a lot of B-sides and extras that have been released, and you're like, I don't want that. And I've grabbed a couple of those. I think there was
some I really like. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, there was a blues one. It was literally like outtakes or like extras from this other live album, but it was still great.
Is good.
Yeah, and
I mean, all the Beatles B-sides and alternative takes, like, give me everything they have, like, give it to me.
Right. But then there's also like, stuff that's just like we talked about in our last episode, that the Eric Burden and the Greenhorns EP.
Yep.
That it's on Spotify, but you can't find that a physical copy of that anywhere. Sure. And I still, love that that's there. Or like, I don't think they're doing as many, but they used to do a lot of singles.
Mm-hmm.
Like they used to release. There was I think there, like I grabbed a Shuggy Otis. A single from like 2014. There was also like a James. I think James Brown did a series of them, and I got like Past the Peas, or was it, I guess, JB's series. But like, there's like little stuff like that. And Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the first years I went, and I think it was on a Black Friday, and the only reason I went was because the Black Keys were releasing the Black Rock album. But when I got there, it was at a store in Newark, Delaware, because I was driving home from when I was living in Maryland. But they were literally, if you bought any album, they would just give you a free 7-inch. Like, I think I got like a free John Mayer cover of like Free Fallin', 7-inch. And then I also bought like one of the Sharon Jones albums, and they gave me just a free 7-inch of a Sharon Jones single as well. So that was the kind of stuff they used to do until it got bigger, right?
Yeah, they do a little. I mean, they give you stickers, they give you pins, they give you little things like that. Yeah. I mean, they make a lot of money, So it's a day where record stores are making a lot of money, the artists are making a lot of money, the industry as a whole is making money. And if they give you a little sticker or an extra 7-inch, sometimes they just have things that they, give away to everybody, just to. They always have a record store bag, which is kind of nice, like a little tote bag. So each year they do those. So, I mean, they're not giving away that much, but, it's kind of nice. I mean, it's a nice gesture.
I feel like in the beginning they did. Like, that was like how they would get you, is that they would give you like, oh, the first 100 people at the store get like a free slip mat. Or we have like these, I think they had promotional CDs for a while and like posters. So yeah, I mean, it's, for those of you who are listening and haven't gone, at least go the day of and check it out, because there's definitely some cool releases. Yeah, and do it.
This is Brendan Benson, and you're listening to Dad Rocks.
Let's talk about what's actually on the list. And Adam, we have some of we've noted some of the ones that we're interested in, but what are you eyeing, like hardcore, like your top 5, top 10 that you're like must have?
I don't necessarily have my top 5 or top 10 right here, but I definitely have the list in front of me. And, I can just basically like, read off the list of like what's hitting me. The Albert Eller 5 LP set is like definitely the top thing on my list without a doubt. That is going to be incredible. But it's free jazz, and it's definitely not for everybody. Chet Baker also has a 3 LP set coming out that I mentioned, that Bad Company live album. I mean,
I was eyeing that, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be a good one, because sometimes they release those albums that are just like but knowing that this is the first live album that they put out, I might have to grab that too.
Yeah, I mean, to hear them live is to hear them. I mean, their albums were really good, and there's only 3,000 of them, so you're not going to have a problem getting rid of it if you want to. I was amused with the Black Pumas,
yes,
because
we were talking about that on chat.
They're putting out the 6-7-inch box set. So I think the Black Pumas get a huge award for releasing the same album more times than
4 or 5 times now,
in every single way possible. And this was a very creative way. I give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
A collector's edition 7-inch box set of the same album that's been out for 2 years.
And I have the deluxe edition. I have the one that
the Grammy nominated deluxe edition. Yeah.
But that could be something. And for people who like 7-inch box sets, that's very cool.
Soul Singles, I give them credit, but cracked me up.
Yeah.
I was like, geez.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4,500 of them, so they're going to sell. They're figuring that they're going to sell them.
Yeah.
The David Bowie EPs, there's an EP and a 10-inch, which looks really good.
Yeah.
The Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, which is interesting. It's live Seeds. I haven't really looked into it, but it's funny because Nick Cave has kind of like pushed the Bad Seeds away for a while, and he's out with Warren Ellis now. His last 3 albums has been with Warren Ellis. So for him to put out a live Bad Seeds album is really interesting to me, and I'm sure it really kicks. It's a 2 LP set. That's cool. Childish Gambino. Oh, that's coming out this time. Karen Dalton, who is definitely having her moment in the last couple of years. She actually had a release last year also. She was this incredible singer who was a recluse, but she was like originally in the early 60s singing with Bob Dylan and all these incredible people, and just like left the world and like lived in the middle of the desert by herself. But her records are unbelievable, and they're putting out this record. There's only 2,000 copies coming out. It's called Shuck and Sugar. And I'm definitely getting that. Sandy Denny has a live album.
That intrigues me.
Sandy Denny, a lot of people don't know her either, but I mean, she's the only woman who sang with Led Zeppelin. And, she was in Fairport Convention. The Doors, The LA Woman, there's 11,000 copies of that coming out. It's a 4 LP set. It's all the outtakes, all the alternative, all the outtakes, all of Jim cursing in the microphone, awesome. And of all of them, LA Woman is the one to hear Jim cursing in the microphone, because that was his worst moment.
That's definitely one that was on my list for sure, the LA Woman. But the Morrison Hotel, I have that one that came out for the 50th anniversary. But all the outtakes were on CD. They weren't on vinyl.
Oh, okay.
Which I was kind of bummed with. I don't know if this LA Woman one, I guess it's all on vinyl.
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh, yeah. All the Record Store releases, they do on, like, it's usually 3 or 4 records. It's pretty cool. The
That's
other
cool.
one,
Yeah, I would definitely like to get that.
The other artist who's going through their catalog like that is Fleetwood Mac. They're putting out the alternative Fleetwood Mac. So basically, they put out the same album, whether it's Rumors or Tusk or whatever. Each year, they do another album, and it's the alternative takes, and they just do the whole album like that. And, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young did one last year for Deja Vu, and I didn't get it, and I'm still kicking myself because my son got it, and I listened to it, and it's better than the original album. It's so great.
I picked up I picked up the alternative
know.
Moon Dance when that came out, when Van Morrison released the alternative Moon Dance.
That would be good.
That was interesting, just because of all the solos in all the different songs, especially Moon Dance itself was totally, it just sounded like a different song, and it was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting, how they choose what they choose, and for whatever reason, whoever actually makes the decision to choose what takes, they probably got paid a lot of money. But looking back, it's really cool to have these opportunities to get these kind of, records that, 50, 70 years later. So then going down the list again, Rocky Erickson and the Explosives, they're releasing a live two LP set from 2007. That was kind of his comeback. He was touring a little bit with the Black Angels. He had actually never played in New York his entire career up until 2007. Yeah. And this is from New York. There's two Bill Evans releases, guarantee getting those. Rory Gallagher live in San Diego 74, two LP set. Kind of a weird psychedelic band from the 70s, Gong. It was David Allen's Gong. They've been releasing some stuff. It's only for the really people who are burnt to a crisp in the brain. It's out there. But I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. So I grab those every chance I can get because how many could they be pressing? The Grateful Dead's doing a 1972 pressing from London. And that's a 5 LP set. They're only pressing 8,000 copies. Usually they've been going up to like 13 to 14,000 copies in the past. And it's kind of surprising that they're doing 8,000 here because they can sell them. They can sell them and they could sell more than that. And they like money. So, it surprised me when I saw that was only 8,000 copies. Then there's this Jazz Sabbath. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Jazz Sabbath releases.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. But they're fun. So I'm going to grab that. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts are doing acoustic versions of all their cool songs.
That's very cool.
Let's see. This band that I really love that's been out for like a decade called La Femme. They're French, and actually their album that came out last year, Paradigms, was one of my favorite albums of the year last year. It was definitely in my top 10. And so they're putting out a full album right now called Paradigms Supplements. And that's going to be on my top of my list. And Delvon Lamar Organ Trio, they're out of Seattle.
Yeah,
and
big
they're their albums, they're on Coal Mine Records, but they remind me of like Blue Note Records, of like organ trios from the 50s
Jimmy
and
Smith
60s.
type stuff. And
Exactly. And so they have this live album, Live in Loveland, and it's a 2 LP set, 7,500 copies. The Lumineers are putting out a 10-inch, part of what they just did on the last recording sessions. So, as if the 2 record set wasn't enough that they just put out, but that's cool. Charlie Mingus is doing a lost album from Ronnie Scott's. The Joni Mitchell is continuing her archives, by putting out highlights from the Blue sessions. And she just did a whole thing with Brandi Carlile. She had a concert at Carnegie Hall, so she's definitely in a Blue mood. They did Blue in its entirety there. Motorhead did the Lost Tapes Volume 1 last year. It was, I realized that I'm not that cool when I listened to that record. I wanted to like it, and I don't know. I couldn't, whatever. But they're putting out Volume 2, and I'm going to try it. I'm always up for trying to learn things and, see what they're about more than I know. Casey Musgraves is doing a picture disc vinyl. I think she looks pretty nice, so I don't mind a picture disc.
Yeah, I probably have a good picture of her on that, so that'll help.
Yeah, and she's going to definitely do a good picture. For sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I'm not worried. Willie Nelson, I don't have a big Willie Nelson collection, but I like seeing him in concert whenever I can. And he's doing the a live from 1974 2 LP set, and he hasn't really done that much for Record Store Day, so this is going to be interesting, and I'm up for that. And Nico is pretty cool. There's a live Nico album, and Nico in her career, she was on the first Velvet Underground record, but she only put out a handful of albums on her own, and so they have actually two different things coming out this year, but the live album is really intriguing. It came out, I think it was pretty much right before her death, the concert that happened. So that's cool, and it was never released before. Laura Nero has live in Japan. She used to be great, but people forget her, so I didn't, but I'm grabbing that. Art Pepper, his album, he did a box set last year. It was his home recordings, and it was like a 5 or 6 album set, and it was just stuff he recorded at home, and they just put it in a box somewhere, and his wife or somebody found it, and it was great. This is Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm section. And what that was he found out one day in like 1957 that he was hired to do a session, and he found out the morning of the session that he was going to be playing with Miles Davis. Okay. So, how do you prepare for that at the last minute? So this is that session. It was actually never released. So,
wow.
Once again, I don't think Miles is on it. I think that it's the rhythm section. I'm not sure because I really don't dig too deep into these things, until my son does. My son gave me a whole printout of every little thing, and but I didn't really read it. I'm just going to go and find things. The Pixies live at Coachella 2004, that should be pretty
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
that was their big comeback. That was when they first reunited, I believe.
And I got something for Joe. The Ramones are putting out their entire Sire albums on a box set, 7
Yeah.
LP set. That probably will make you feel poor, but
Yeah.
But again, you'll have everything, and it's all remastered, and I'm sure it's going to be really cool. Lou Reed and Chris Christopherson at the Bottom Line. Now, the Bottom Line, they recorded every single show that ever happened at the Bottom Line. And so that's another interesting thing about Record Store Day is like Ronnie Scott's has been doing it, like different venues have been doing it. So now I start seeing a few things coming out from the Bottom Line, and I know what they, the bands that played
Quality
there
is
because
good.
I used to live there practically. So that's interesting. That's a 3-record set, and I'm looking for more Bottom Line releases. Maybe like an early Bruce Springsteen one, would be a pretty good one. The Replacements are doing, it was a concert that they did for like French radio station, and that's going to be great. And St. Vincent has an LP coming out exclusive for Records Today. It's the soundtrack album. So, there's a lot of soundtrack freaks coming to Records Today, and I never really realized how important soundtrack records were to a lot of people until I started standing in line talking to these people at Records Today. And sometimes, you talk to people like that about like records in their collection, and then I start realizing what I must sound like to other people, So, people are just very focused on what they are zoned in on, and it's really cool. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to get the soundtrack of St. Vincent because I think St. Vincent is awesome. Peter Tosh has a live set coming out, 2 LPs. You can already see how much money I would spend. And Weyes Blood, she's a really cool new artist. She's been around for a while, but she's like, for a lot of people, she's new. And that's an exclusive also, which is pretty incredible. It's, The Innocents, and it's a single LP. And that's pretty much it for me. But usually I say that all the time, and then I go there and I wind up with twice as much. Because the record stores that I go to, they all know me. So when I go in there, they're like, "Oh, you're not getting this? Do you know this about it?" And and all of a sudden I have 5 or 10 more records. Or when I'm standing in line and talking to people, I find out things that like I didn't zone in on the list, and then I just kind of find out organically about things that I feel like I need. And when I need something, look out, world.
Adam listed a few of the ones that I jotted down. The Doors LA Woman, the Joan Jett acoustic sounds pretty interesting. The Pixies one, live at Coachella. He did not mention, which I saw on the list, Peppa Pig, Peppa's Adventures, the album.
Huge.
That's a 1700 vinyl pressing for all you hardcore Peppa Pig fans out there. So I'm sure people will be waiting all night to get the 180-gram Peppa Pig Adventure vinyl album. I also have Lou Reed, I'm So Free, the 1971 RCA demos. It sounds pretty cool. And there was a few compilations. I was just looking at the list that looked pretty cool. There's a punk one, Punk 45, like punk singles 77 to 78. There's a cool ska rocksteady one, 100% Dynamite. I've seen WFMU plays some stuff from that album in the past, and that'd be pretty cool one to have. So yeah, pretty much that's and that Ramones one. But although I'm not a huge, I don't think I need like the late '80s Ramones, but it would be cool to have the whole thing, the whole decade, I guess, in one shot. Would be kind of cool.
That's a coffee table set.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, sometimes those box sets are fun. I bought the, it wasn't a Record Store Day one, but I bought the box set of all the Faces albums. They were re-released on vinyl, and it's just nice to have. You're like, this may be $200, but that's also like you think about how many records you're paying for.
Yes.
And it's worth having sometimes, especially if you're going to keep them for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Ron Wood and Rod Stewart at their finest moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
But yeah, Steve, what do you got on your list?
So I'm very averse to picture discs. I just got an MC5 picture disc legitimately just because it had the White Panther logo and everything on it. But otherwise, I kind of avoid them. But Devo is doing a 40th anniversary pressing of Oh No, It's Devo, which is like the last of their big run before they kind of broke up in the 80s. And I just feel like it's a picture disc and it's Devo, so I'm sure it's going to be a little eclectic and probably have some cool packaging. So I will definitely consider that one. Plus, I just need to add more Devo to my collection. And then I saw this just on the list, but I'm always down for like some underground funk and soul. The Pharaohs in the Basement. They're like a Chicago band, and it seems like a lot of jams. I think they had like one album that actually was released, and this is kind of like their B-sides and extras. But I listened to it today, and it was great. So definitely want to check that out. And then there is a Aquarium Drunkard compilation, and basically he did a collection of the newest wave of Brazilian music. So it's called, and I'm horrible with Portuguese, but Atenção Novos Sons de Brazil. So new songs of Brazil. And it's like, I think 10 songs curated, but almost every song on that comp is like really good. Some of it has some jazz bossa nova vibe. Some of it has some almost like pop. Some of it has some just like psychedelic vibe, but just, I guess, like what's coming from Brazil. And then I just wanted to make a honorable mention to, even though I have most of the songs on this one, I still might get it because I don't have Venus actually on record, but Shocking Blue at Home, the singles, and it's just like a mixture of various singles, and I have like half the songs. So I was like, you know what? I might check that out. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. For me, usually with these, there's always, at least the last few times, there's been like one that I've wanted. Like there was the Robert Palmer last year, and then the Little Feat album. I was like, I just need one. I'm not going to spend a whole lot. Just let me grab that. And this year, there's a couple, but the one that I'm definitely eyeing and I need to grab is the Nick Lowe Wireless World record. And I was looking at it. And I was like, well, this is just, the Jesus of Cool album. And it's the original version of it, because I guess they re-released it, or like they changed the order of it and changed the title. That album is just fantastic. So I need to get that one. And then there's also this series that for the first, I guess, 5 years, I grabbed. It's the Sun Records curated by Record Store Day, and they always have really cool stuff on there. And this one is the Sam Phillips years, so it's like a bunch of the early stuff, it seems. And for someone who's not a big country fan, but just to have like some great, good quality early, that late 50s, early 60s, country music stuff. It's great. And
probably
what's
some
interesting
rockabilly
about
too.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that series is I think like volume 3 and 4 was more later on when they were getting more into like kind of not just country, and there's some really cool stuff on there. Nothing you would even really know, but it's always, and they're usually fairly priced, like $20-$25 or something. So it's always a good pickup. And I didn't realize that this was coming out in the June 18th drop, but the Jim James doing, the recent, or most of the recent release acoustic. I'm going to try to grab that because, I love the new album, and him by himself is always an interesting, fun listen. Definitely a lot of other things that I would love to pick up, but as Adam said, you're gonna go in and you're gonna be spending a lot of money, so you got to pick and choose what it is that you're gonna want to buy. Again, if I can get that Nick Lowe record, I'll be happy. That's the one that I want, and that if I can grab that, I'm good. But yeah, I mean, Joe, I got to tell you, I definitely go to the one in the UK. It's probably going to be a scene.
You got to check it out at least once.
I definitely want to. I'm kind of mad that it's going to land on this day. Obviously, it's going to be super hard to swing that.
Well, June 18th, you get another chance in June.
June 18th, then hopefully I'm around, because my list here that I jotted down. I'm like, oh man, now I really want these. I may have to nudge some of you guys to like, hey, if someone's going.
Hey, listen, no, this is I do that all.
Do that.
I do it all the time. Like I mentioned my friend Henry. We'll text each other because we live in different areas. I go to the one in Westwood up here. He'll go to the one. What's the one in Wayne? Sound
Exchange. Yeah.
Sound Exchange. So he'll go up there, and we'll be like, "This is what we're looking for. If you see it, grab it." And we've done that a bunch of times for each other because we always don't want the same things, and so I'll grab something for him, we'll Venmo each other, and then we got our records that we want without having to,
very cool.
to really, jump around. Like Adam said, it's good to bump around. I actually texted Adam I think this past year and was like,
Yeah.
"Are you getting the Little Feat album?" And you're like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay," because I wanted to make sure I got that. And I knew I already saw his pictures that he was standing in line at 2 a.m. in the rain.
Yeah, they had actually released that on vinyl and on CD, and I have another friend who wanted it any way he could get it, and he lives in a place where there's like no real easy record stores, so I bought him the CD and delivered it to him. And that's just a great thing to do for somebody, because that's like gold. So that's like the best thing you could ever give anybody is that kind of music.
I will say this: it's interesting that I guess I'm kind of surprised, but not all the record stores do Record Store Day. I remember when I was in Newark, Delaware, for a different reason, and I went on Black Friday, and we went to two different record stores. One, I think it's Rainbow Records, which is a great record store if you're ever there. It's right by the University of Delaware campus. Was doing Black Friday that day because we were down there at Thanksgiving, and then I went to another one, and they weren't. And I said, "You guys do record store day?" No, we don't deal with that capitalist stuff. So
some don't,
I guess, and. So you definitely have to call ahead. They do have a list on recordstoreday.com to check it out. And, even just call ahead, like Adam said, find out what they're potentially buying. And there are, if you can't get there, I remember I bought stuff from this place in Atlanta, or is it Athens? Somewhere in Georgia, either Athens or Atlanta. And they still had a bunch of stuff that you could just, at noon, you could start buying stuff online. I was unsuccessful when they had the record store drops of buying stuff from Amoeba out in California, because, they'll sell out nonstop. But like, definitely, even if you can't get there, check online, and there's always places that'll have it.
Yeah, and also you can go to the record stores the following day on the Sunday, and you'd be surprised how many records they still have left.
You'd be surprised at how many records they have left from 2 years ago, Record Store Day,
Right.
and that are very, very well priced, marked down. I know that can be a problem of getting too many of the thing that you anticipate. I think there was a year that like the Scotties anticipated selling a bunch of Taylor Swift, and they didn't. Like they sold like 3 or something. I think there was also a Grateful Dead one time that they thought they'd sell a lot of, and they didn't.
There's some ones like that. That's why I'm looking at the list. It kind of makes me laugh. Like I mentioned Peppa Pig, but there's other ones like that where I'm like, this one's not going to sell, doesn't matter how many copies. Like there's some random thing. There's some, I don't want to say cheesy, but there's sort of some random ones thrown in there. There's a lot, mostly it's all cool stuff. And then there's like, what is
like
that
the Peppa
one?
Pig, right? Like who's going to pick up the Peppa Pig?
Where did that come from?
Well,
Right.
That.
You don't know, because I mean, there's also the series, this Rockabye Baby that does like very like chill versions. I bought my friend the Tom Petty version because he just had a kid. He loves Tom Petty. Why not throw in a vinyl record? Get your kids into music,
Sure.
At an early age, and in that way. So they do a good job catering for that. But I mean, I don't know who's going to pick up the Nicki Minaj album when that comes out. But,
Right.
Well, how about like LA Guns? I mean, there's an LA Guns, like forget, there's some like.
Get the Eddie Trunk, Trunk Nation to come out.
He's against vinyl. He's only listens to CD, Eddie Trunk.
Of course.
I mean, you don't know who's going to pick up the Nicki Minaj, but that could sell. That could be the first thing that sells out.
Yeah, well,
Exactly,
obviously,
yeah.
well,
She's
Taylor
big.
Swift. Taylor Swift is the ambassador for Record Store Day this
Yes.
year.
Yes,
And
we should have. Yeah,
you
mentioned
have a
that,
lot
yeah.
of kids who are getting into records. A lot of younger people. I feel weird saying that as the youngest of this group, but it's like a lot of people in their teens who will come and grab the records.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great day. I'm glad we were able to talk about it this year, and it was a pleasure having you again, Adam. At some
thank you.
point, we're gonna have to talk more about your vinyl collection and do a deeper dive and.
Yeah, let's go live from the ranch.
We should do a live Instagram or something at
seriously.
some point.
That will definitely be a multi-part episode. That would be like a whole season.
Yeah.
Kind of like our concert one with you, but that was fantastic one too. But Adam, again, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. Definitely,
Sure.
You made me interested in a couple of records I wasn't so sure of. Like that Bad Company record, definitely is one that I'm going to try to grab if it is available to me. Knowing a little
You
more
can't get
about it.
enough of their love.
But thanks again for coming on, and we hope to have you back on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode, and a special thanks to Adam Shanker for coming on to the show. You can follow Adam on Instagram at adam.shanker, where you'll find a ton of great pictures of shows he's gone to, as well as information on musicians that he loves. You can learn more about Record Store Day, including what stores are hosting the event and what's on the list, by going to recordstoreday.com. I strongly suggest checking out an event if there's a store near you hosting, regardless of what time you get there, as it's always a great atmosphere, and you'd be supporting a local business. If you enjoyed what you heard, and haven't already, go ahead and follow, like, subscribe, or whatever you need to do to automatically get new episodes of the podcast. We'd also really appreciate it if you left a review on whichever podcasting platform you use, or just told a friend or two about the show. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and Twitter at DadRocksPod, as well as on Facebook by just searching up Dad Rocks Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or any show ideas for us, or just want to give us a shout, you can always message us on those social media outlets or email us at dadrockspod@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and remember, dads, you rock.